Welcome to Davidtree's Love Who You Are podcast. If you're new to Davidtree, we certify meditation teachers and offer online courses in yoga for anxiety and teaching yoga to children. Davidtree's been a leader in the wellness industry for almost 30 years. I'm your host, Candice Lapointe. Join me as I connect with insightful guests who share the surprising places their meditation, yoga, and wellness journey have taken them. Navigating the human experience can feel perilous at times, but our guests share how embracing their radical uniqueness and applying self-compassion can change everything. Hi, beautiful humans. Welcome back to another episode of the Love Who You Are podcast. I'm so glad you're here. It's no secret that substance use and addiction are everywhere. We see it in the obvious ways, alcohol, drugs, gambling, but we also see it in scrolling, emotional eating, overworking, and the constant need to be on. It's woven into the fabric of how so many of us are trying to cope, to connect, or just get through the day. But addiction isn't really just about the substance or the behavior. It's a signal pointing us towards something deeper. In today's episode, I sit down with Christa Royal, an incredible 1,000-hour trained yoga teacher, compassionate inquiry practitioner, and someone who's been on the path of sobriety for 14 years. This conversation touched me deeply and honestly helped reframe how I understand addiction as a response to disconnection, shame, and unmet emotional needs. Christa shares her own story with such honesty, from childhood patterns with food to using alcohol to navigate the pressures of motherhood. She opens up about the quiet moment of realization when she knew something had to change, even though no one around her saw her drinking as a problem. We peel back the layers in this touching conversation. We talk about how addiction often grows in the places where we feel most alone, how shame keeps us stuck, and why healing is less about fixing and more about listening, really listening to what the behavior is trying to say. This episode is full of insight for anyone who's curious about their own patterns, supporting someone they love, or simply wanting to understand the deeper emotional terrain of addiction and recovery. It's real, it's compassionate, and it reminds us that sobriety isn't just about abstaining. It's about reconnecting with your body, with your truth, and with your inner voice. Enjoy. Okay, well, hello there, Christa Royal. Thank you so much for joining me on the Love Who You Are podcast. I've been so looking forward to this conversation. I just wanted to welcome you and thanks so much for agreeing to partake in the conversation.
Well, thank you for having me. I love being here, Candice. Thank you for thinking of me.
Of course. And the conversation that we're having today is a pretty important one. We're going to be discussing addictions and your sobriety journey and recovering out loud and how it's all weaved in and interconnected with yoga and meditation and all the other things that you've got going on that are just so beautiful in your life. I was really excited about it because I just feel like now more than ever, there's a lot of addictions popping up for folks. And so, do you have a comment about that just to kind of start it off?
Well, I was going to say that we live in such a tough time, like economically. And, what do people do? They turn to things that support them. And not always are those things, friends or community. Sometimes it's what makes me feel better. And that is drinking. That's the way some people choose to cope.
Mm-hmm.
And I get that because I turned to that too years ago.
So I think that storytelling is one of the most powerful things. And so can you kind of go back and take us back to those days where you used alcohol and other means to cope that maybe weren't particularly healthy?
Do you want me to take you all the way back to the very
beginning? Yeah, let's start right at the beginning, please. Okay. Paint the picture.
So, I know. Well, it took me a long time to figure this out, but literally my first addiction was chocolate, and I was just little. I remember sitting in my parents' house in Fergus and sitting down in the basement, and my parents fought and argued there, and they sold chocolate. Like at the time, I didn't like it. Our fridge was full of chocolate bars, and I remember sitting there and sneaking chocolate and sitting behind the bar in the basement and eating chocolate. And I just remember feeling this wash of like, I don't know, do you ever get those shivers when something feels really good?
Oh, yeah.
And that's what that chocolate did for me. For some reason, it kind of just made all the arguing kind of melt away, and it made me feel connected to something. And so we're talking 6, 7. That's when that started for me. And then, of course, as I got older, like it progresses into different things, right? Then I get older, I'm in my teens, and I just want to belong, and I just want to be part of something, and everybody else is drinking. So, like grade 8, I started to drink, sneak it from my mom's cabinet. And then, it just eventually kind of just kept progressing from there and getting worse and worse and worse. And it wasn't something that I did every day, but it was definitely something that I did consistently and not healthily on the weekends. I grew up in a small county where there really isn't anything to do. And so what do? You go out with your friends and you drink or you do drugs. That was how we had fun. And thankfully I never got into the drug part of it, but drinking, it stayed with me for a long time. And then it progressed, like as I got older, I stopped for a bit. So I got pregnant a couple times, like with my children, and I didn't drink at all with them. But then as soon as my youngest was like 4, it started in again. And it was almost like the pressure of motherhood and being perfect became too much. And so then I would like do my day, put the kids to bed, and then it would start in the evenings, and I would drink a lot in the evenings because my ex actually at the time worked really late. I just needed to connect again, and it kind of made everything go away, and it made everything feel good. And then that was 10, 15 years that I consistently every single night when I put the kids to bed would find comfort in alcohol.
Wow.
And it wasn't fun. I remember not feeling really well all the time. I mean, how do you feel good when you keep putting a lot of alcohol into your body, right? And yeah, so that was a good 15 years that was the cycle. And then for me, it just progressed even a little bit more to where on the weekends, I couldn't wait to get to the weekends, and I couldn't wait to get, to have some drinks. And then the drinks would start at like 10 in the morning on Saturday, Sunday, and then they would last until I went to bed. And then all over again, the evening cycle. It was all.
And so when did you awaken to this shift that this wasn't the way that you wanted to lead your life anymore, and that this was not the path that you were wanting to continue on and were looking for something different? How did you come to that realization?
So I've been sober for 14 years. This May, I was 14 years sober. And I would say for a good 4 or 5 years before that, there was that nagging in the back of my mind, that little voice that you hear inside yourself that says, hey, do this, don't do that. I guess we could call that intuition. Somebody was speaking to me and saying, this isn't what you want. And then I would go pour myself a drink. And then I would continue that cycle. And so like every time I went to take a drink, that voice would pop up into my head. This isn't what you want. This isn't what you need. But then eventually the voice got so loud that there was no ignoring it, none whatsoever. I remember one day I went into the bathroom. I was getting ready to go somewhere and I fell on the floor, the shower running. I don't know if you've ever had the shower on and done your cry session because you don't want anyone to hear, because you're mom and you just don't want your kids. If you have empathic kids, you don't want your kids to hear that going on. And I just remember lying there on the bathroom floor going, this is not what I want anymore. This is not what I want. And I wasn't very connected spiritually then. I just remember saying, I need help. Can you help me? Can you guide me? I get shivers right now thinking about it, and chills, and I get a little teary. That somewhere inside of me, something just said, you deserve better. You deserve way better than this. You deserve to feel happy and to feel connected. And I just asked. And then I don't know, the next day I just woke up and there was this thing inside of me that said, today's the day we're not having a drink.
My goodness. So it sounds like some sort of like divine intervention almost, right?
It 100% does, because I didn't get up. Nobody came to me and said, because I wasn't a stumbling down person who drank. Like when I said to people, okay, I'm going to get sober, they were like, what are you talking about? You don't even drink that much. And I was like, well, I'm really good at hiding it. I'm really good at pacing myself so that you don't know that I have a problem. I'm really good at it, that masking. Like I was so good at it. But I was like, no, I definitely have a problem. I'm drinking way more than a normal person would probably drink, because then I'm also hiding it. And so it felt like divine intervention. Somebody just went, this girl's asked for help and we're going to help her. I mean, now looking back, I'm like, definitely my angels and my guides and maybe ancestors behind me, saying, okay, we're here for you. We're going to support you. You've made a choice. Let's move forward
Oh,
with it.
I love that. I love that. So through you explaining your story and sharing with us, there's all these questions that keep on popping up. So I'm trying to as we go along, I'm trying to clock and think back. Okay. So you described yourself as somebody that started an addiction when you were young, like 6, 7, 8 years old with chocolate. And so
So young.
in the addiction world, I commonly hear of people with addictive personalities, and
That's me.
right. And so these things of okay, be careful, you have an addictive personality. And so it could be any sort of vice,
Yeah.
food, alcohol, drugs, porn, any kind of thing. And so what would you say to those folks you think that there are people that just maybe tend to lean towards more of an addiction to cope with
Oh, sure.
feelings, and then B, what would you say to those folks that have an addictive personality? How do you come back to yourself and check in all the time to ensure that you don't, constantly go down the slippery slope into whatever it is?
That's such a good question.
Mhm.
So about the slippery slope, I definitely slip back into that sometimes. So I definitely don't have any problems with alcohol, right? Like I never have an inkling to need a drink or want to drink anymore. But I definitely do have to be careful with chocolate. I still, to this day, I can still get caught up in that whole loop of eating chocolate, like mini eggs at Easter. Like, do not even get me started on that. That they shouldn't even be allowed to make those things.
Yeah.
Because if somebody's going to have just a couple, like I'll eat the whole bag. And when I say a bag, I mean like the
The
big
big
bag.
bag.
Like I could devour that thing, no problem.
Mm.
And you think I would be sick. But I also in that moment go, oh, okay. What's happening? Like what's happening with you right now? Why are you feeling the need to fill yourself with this? Is there something happening in your life right now that's causing you stress? Are you feeling sad? Are you feeling overwhelmed? Is there something that is physically, am I nutrient deficient? Do I need like specifically something in my body? So I think for me, the thing is getting curious about what's happening.
Mm.
Chocolate is probably one of the lesser, I guess, like destroying, like it won't destroy your life
Right.
if you eat chocolate, whereas like drugs or alcohol can be quite destructive, like to family and to personal and to work and to all that. But it's more about the behavior, the pattern. And for me, I do have an addictive personality, so I have to be very careful. Food is a big one for me. And so I have to be very careful that I don't overdo things too much and then just pull back and go, okay, you deserve to eat well, you deserve to eat healthfully, you deserve all the good stuff, and you don't need to put all this stuff in your body. But also not limit myself and say it's okay once in a while to have a treat. Like it's okay. That's me. I don't know that that's the same for everybody who has issues with food. And then the other part of the question that you asked, what was that first part about? It was about addictive patterns, and like some people are just have addictive
Personalities.
personalities.
Yes.
Yes. There could be for some people like it's just one moment in time that triggers them, and then that's that. They might just start to drink. There's lots of different people that have different ways of coping.
Obviously, we are all unique human beings and go through our own situations and life course. And
Yeah.
so I know that there's always things that are coming towards us and we're, trying to navigate.
Mm-hmm.
So I know that maybe this is just a very generic kind of question, but are there underlying emotions or feelings that you see are across the board for people who have these addictive personalities or who lean towards alcohol, drugs, and other vices to help cope?
Well, yeah, like I've been a part of a group before, and we did talk about, the different reasons of why we got addicted, and I'll speak for me. Let's speak my experience, and then I'll say that in general there was a consensus that across the board there was, yeah, that was me too, me too, me too, me too, me too.
Mm-hmm.
In the moment when I was eating the chocolate as a young child, my parents would fight and argue. And so in that moment, I felt completely disconnected, right? I felt completely disconnected from my family core. I didn't feel safe in that moment. Not that
Mm-hmm.
my parents were ever mean to me, but in that moment, that fighting and that argument, and as a completely sensitive child to, even to this day, I'm sensitive to a lot of arguing.
Mm-hmm.
or loud noises, in that moment, I felt completely disconnected and I didn't feel safe. And so seeking something, I don't know why chocolate would make me feel safe. There must be some chemical thing that happens in your brain that's beyond my scope of knowledge. Well, I think it might be dopamine. But in that moment, it made me feel like I was connected to something. And it filled that emptiness inside that I felt like I'm not connected to my mom right now. I'm not connected to my dad right now because they're busy arguing. I'm little. I'm 5, 6, 7. I'm sad. I'm scared. I'm lonely. And I don't know what to do. And then the other big thing that came from it was, okay, here I am now hiding behind something, eating all of this chocolate, experiencing all this that's going on in my home, which is supposed to be my safe space, right? Now I'm hiding and I'm eating. And then what does that bring up too? That also brings up like shame and guilt. And, I remember getting in trouble because I ate the chocolate that my parents were selling. So like there was all of these different emotions that kind of came in. And so I think that across the board, like for me, those are the emotions that would come in. And then with this group of humans that I was with in this amazing experience, it was the same thing. So there was like this big disconnect and the core feeling of not feeling safe and the core feeling of feeling disconnected and not, my people that I'm supposed to feel safe with are busy being angry and making me scared. I don't feel safe to go to them in that moment. Yeah, I don't. Yeah.
Wow. So you mentioned that you came to this realization in your shower that you just wanted more. You wanted something different, and you deserve
Yes.
better, right? And so do you, in your experience in helping other people with mental health and addiction issues, when does that realization come for folks? Because I always hear about this, like, well, they're going to have to hit rock bottom before they realize that they have an issue or that they want help or that they're going to want a better life. And so it weighs so heavy on my heart that that's the way that we have to view addictions, is that like somebody has to go through immense pain, immense shame and guilt before they realize that they want something else. I just find it so fascinating that you came to this term on your, it sounds like before things got really out of hand. And so what could you offer in terms of, somebody that I guess is not necessarily at that breaking point, not at that rock bottom? Does somebody have to get there?
Well, no. You don't necessarily, you don't have to get there. Nobody needs to hit rock bottom. Anybody can be helped at any time. Right. And I think the biggest thing is like when I come back and that thing, like we say, oh, people need to hit rock bottom before they can actually get help. That to me is kind of lacks compassion. And as a society, it's like, why do we want these people? Why do we want people to hit rock bottom before they know that they can ask for help? Right. Like you can ask for help at any point in time. You can ask for help. And the thing is that everybody's rock bottom is different. Right. So for me, it was, I wasn't really connecting with myself anymore. I wasn't connecting with my family. I don't know any deeper rock bottom than not connecting with yourself at all. Right. That affects like your whole entire being. That affects your whole entire life and how you are present yourself in the world, how you treat people. I didn't like how I was treating myself. I didn't like how I was treating my family. I was quite mean to my husband at the time. And, to me, as a person who loves compassion and empathy and doesn't want harm for anybody, like to me, that was rock bottom because I didn't like how I was being to other people. It kind of was, in my gut, did not feel good. And like, what do I say to other people is like, just don't be afraid to ask. You don't have to hit rock bottom. You can, and I don't know. It's like, what do I say to other people? No, I'm like, I don't know what I say. Because I say it in the moment. Everybody's different. Like I just say it in the moment. And I think the biggest thing is that just know that you're worth asking for help, and you don't even necessarily have to ask for help. I've had lots of people come to me and say, I struggle with this. I struggle with that. I'm not ready to give it up yet. Okay. Clearly it's doing something for you that you need right now. So let's not have shame around it. Let's not judge it. Let's just sit and explore what is it that it's bringing to you right here, right now. Because clearly your addiction to whatever it is that you're having has a purpose for you right now. And if we can find out what the purpose and the function of that addiction is, then you don't ever have to hit rock bottom because now we can work with it. You know, a lot of people, it might be that I lack community, I lack connection, I don't love myself. You know, a lot of afraid to feel emotion, right? We don't want to feel our emotions. Like that's a big thing too, right? We want to hide our emotions and escape from them. And what works really good to numb? Alcohol, drugs, right? So maybe we're just scared. Maybe we just need somebody to talk with us that isn't going to take away that thing that makes us feel really good right now. I don't know if that answered what.
Yeah, it does. And so you talked about this connection piece and like not feeling connected to yourself, not connected to others. And I know that you kind of started your sobriety journey on your own, but you know, I think that that becomes it's a very vulnerable space to be, to say that you have an issue and that you're looking for support and connection. And so I think that a lot of people might avoid seeking support and help based on the fact that there's the shame and vulnerability involved with it. And so what would you say to, again, I know that it's like, don't be afraid to come forward and ask for help, because we all do need support in one way or another sometimes. And so where is this, like, I don't know, how do you reassure somebody that there isn't going to be anything lost, or there's only positives to gain by stepping forward in this truth and looking for support and help?
Well, I can give like my story is like, for years I had I don't know, let's see, 7 years. The first 7 years of my journey I did on my own. Not sure why. A lot of it was because I lived in a small community and I was kind of afraid to go into the room and kind of go, okay, you know, are people judging me? And so I don't know, another shift happened for me. And I realized in that moment that for 7 years I was hiding. And then when I found Davidry, I found yoga. And then that really kind of shined a light on the areas of where in my life I was lacking. And for me, it was this connection, but not just connection. It was basically unconditional love. It was unconditional, you know, acceptance. It was like, I just show up how I am. And all of a sudden, people really liked me. People loved me, and I could just be myself. And I think that that's the important thing, is knowing and finding the space that works for you. There's so many different avenues that you can go down to find support for addiction, but it's basically finding what works for you. So it might work for somebody else to join in to do yoga, but that might not be somebody's thing, right? So it might be, if I'm just lacking connection and community, maybe I like to knit, or maybe I like to bowl, or maybe I like to do this, or I like to do that. So it's finding what is it at the core that I really, really, really need. And for me, it was disconnection from myself, but it was also feeling disconnected from others and full acceptance of who I am, and knowing that like I didn't need to change anything about me. I could be exactly the way that I was.
What does that look like for you when you look back and you look at your full journey from being young all the way through motherhood and your relationships? And when you look back at yourself, are you in a forgiving state of these pieces, or are you at an acceptance that these are all a part of your story and your journey? Or how does this all play out for you now when you reflect?
Well, yeah, I think when I look back, there's still a lot of pieces that pop up for me that I have to work through, right? I have to work through, like, do I love this part of myself? And if I don't, what do I need to do to get there, right? To love this part. And I think the big part is finding a community that really does love you, because sometimes you just need to be shown how to love yourself. So I think that our community, like within Davidry and the yoga, there was a lot of people that were showing how they loved themselves, right? And how they showed up, how they ate, how they acted, the different things that they did for themselves each day, connecting in with their passions and you know, doing all that. And so for me, I learn by watching. And so for me, the love for myself deepened when I started in with the yoga, because of the words that were spoken, and then they were repetitive, right? Like the repeated, right? So then that gets into the system. And then I believe that when you're around people that do love themselves, it can't help but fall in love with yourself. Because if somebody loves themselves, they have the ability to love you. And then that mirrors back to me, and it's like, okay, you know what? If they can love it, why can't I love it? And let's take a look at why is it so difficult for me to love these parts of myself? And if somebody else can love them, why can't I?
Thinking about your Sanskrit name.
Right?
And just the
That is so
perfectly
perfect.
imperfect, right? And
Yeah.
embracing
Yes.
all the little bits that aren't necessarily 100%, but are just as beautiful and whole in their own
Yeah.
way.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that if we can love ourselves in the messiness, then there's nothing greater than being able to love ourselves when we are having a real crap day.
Mm-hmm.
Or we've said something or done something, that we're like, okay, this isn't in alignment with who I am, but oh my gosh, can I love myself? We can always apologize for what we've done and, let the person know, sorry, I didn't mean to snap or whatever. Obviously, I'm going through something. It wasn't about you. And then take a moment to reflect on that and go, okay, I can still love myself even though I did that. Yeah,
So it does
I love
remind
that.
me of these cycles in addiction where, like you've talked, where you have to kind of catch yourself on these slippery slopes. And I feel like it's just such a cycle of people who maybe are trying their best to honor and give themselves healthy choices and lead the life that they want to, but then for whatever reason blip up and fall back into old patterns. And
Yeah,
then there's this cycle of shame, and then just using alcohol or drugs continues on. And so
yeah.
I feel like it's such a winding road, and it is a journey. It's never truly a destination. It's such a like a typical thing to say. Oh my gosh. But the thing is,
That's a journey.
yeah, it's a journey. But I keep on thinking back to you saying that no one really thought that you had a problem, and that your family
Oh,
never really thought that one or two drinks at nighttime was an issue. And there's a couple of things I kind of wanted to ask you about this. I personally live in a community that really values and socializes over alcohol and drugs. And it's just such an interesting perspective to take a step back and realize how that is impacting relationships and even the way that we connect and show
yeah.
up for one another. Oh, that no one thought. So then that just
No one
reinforces
thought,
no one thought that you had an issue. So I feel like it's
right?
really reinforced by these socialization, like these social natures
Yeah.
that, with the drinking piece, especially for me in my social groups,
Mhm.
is that, why aren't you drinking? Or there's always like a question as to why you wouldn't participate in that since everyone else is doing it. And I do think that sobriety is becoming cool. Like I see, maybe it's just my social
It's
media
really
feeds.
cool.
I don't know. But yeah, what's your thought about that? About trying to step back and being sucked into those pieces where you're feeling like it's a part of your social circles and being liked and accepted and all that piece.
Well, the whole thing right there, that when you're talking about that, what I hear is connection,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like as humans, one of our basic needs is to connect and to have connection, right? Like we need connection to live and to survive. And, look at our children when they're little. Without us and our connection, right? How would they grow?
Mm-hmm.
Right? They need us. So for me, when I quit drinking and everybody was like, you don't really have a problem. First of all, I second guessed myself. Like, did I really? And I was like, okay, well, the two huge bottles of liquor that I'm drinking a week probably tell me that I do. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So I just was like, okay, I have to believe myself that yes, I do have a problem. But it was kind of trivialized. So when I said, oh, I'm going to stop drinking, I'm not going to drink anymore. The amount of times that people said, you could just have a beer. Like, you're fine, just have one. You don't have a problem. So then that made me second guess myself, which also was like, that has to do with my level of how secure am I with myself?
Mm-hmm.
How confident enough am I in who I am to say, okay, I do have addiction and I don't want to be this way anymore. Do I have the confidence to keep going, even though everyone around me supports me, but then sometimes says something like that? And it took a long time for me to realize that people just get awkward with it. And if they get awkward, like, you have to just not be awkward. I know that sounds silly, just don't be awkward. But you get better at saying no and being okay with the saying no. And so, but I totally understand it too. Like, now looking back, why people do drink. It is very social. It's a very easy way to connect. And after having a couple of drinks, our inhibitions go down and we can be more ourselves because we have less fear of being judged because we have had the alcohol, which lowers our inhibition, which just allows us to relax and to be funny or carefree or whatever. And so then that also allows us to connect.
Right.
I lost a lot of friends. I lost a lot of friends a lot because that was the core of what we did.
Right.
Just drank. And so it was super lonely for a really long time. But then I got okay with being on my own. And then it took time, but then I realized, okay, yeah, I need connection, but I need connection with people who don't necessarily not drink, but people who do not view drinking as the means of the entertainment.
Right.
Yeah.
It's not
like
just always assumed that whenever you get together, there's
Right.
always going to be drinks had. Like you guys can.
Right.
Right.
I love that I have a lot of friends in my life who, when we get together, they don't go, I'm just not going to drink because you don't drink. Like, I don't care if you have drinks. That's not my issue. You can have drinks if you want. Like, I'm not worried about it, but I just love having friends that isn't the core of it. Like, they could take it or leave it. And that amazes me, first of all, that somebody can take or leave a drink.
Right.
I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
I don't know what's wrong with you. No, I'm just kidding. I love it. I don't know. It's just in my mind. Like, they can just take it or leave it. I just know that I will never have a drink again because I don't know that I will, like, I don't know that I would stop. So I'm very impressed with those people.
Right.
But I just love that I have friends that are like, it's not even on the radar. We're not even thinking about it. We're going to go do fun things, and never once is alcohol even going to be a part of it. And so, like, I love that.
Right. And it sounds like such healthy connections. And
right.
You've talked about finding yoga and other more spiritual practices and things that have helped you really navigate this sobriety and form these healthy connections. You've mentioned also that yoga might not be everybody's forte. And so I really think about the men in my life, in my community. It's almost a little bit of a pinging heart spot for me because I think about the disconnection that a lot of these men have and not necessarily having something to gravitate towards like yoga. I mean, they definitely could, but I'm thinking specifically about some people in my community that wouldn't be their first choice of connection. And so where do you think that these men that I'm referring to, let's say, could turn? What would be some other healthy alternatives to get involved with instead of just yoga or more spiritual practices?
Well, and I also think, like, for women, like, if you are doing that spiritual path and yoga and meditation, like, I think it is easier for us to find things and ways to connect that do not include alcohol. And if you think of a lot of men, like, it's going to be sports. And what's a big thing after sports? I don't know. They're always going to have a beer or something, right? I just think, I do know that I have a friend who is in recovery, and if they can't find what they want to do, they create it. So either, like, asking around, like, is there a non-alcohol baseball league? Is there a non-alcoholic hockey league? Is there, or, they create it. Like, I want to create a baseball team that doesn't have alcohol. Is anybody in? Or I think and then also the other big thing too is depending on how hard or easy it is for you to say no to alcohol, having a buddy with you, like having somebody in sobriety that is with you, to go with you, so that if you are say you're playing hockey or baseball as a man, well, women can too, sorry, I don't mean to just say, but we were talking about men.
Yeah.
Just have that buddy with you so that you can both be accountable to each other. If the beer comes out and you're not comfortable, you both just get up and say, okay, it's time to go.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
And then another question that I was thinking about too is the impact, the ripple effect that addiction has on families and friends. And, you mentioned that you've had to shed some relationships because they were all based in drinking. And I just think about just even the ripple effects of having to watch loved ones go through addictions. And what would you say would be a piece of advice that you could give family members and friends who know that their loved one has an addiction issue? What is something that's actually meaningful and something that would be fitting and not necessarily push people away? Do you know what I'm saying? Like, what was something that was
Yeah,
helpful for you?
it is hard.
Are you or someone you love feeling overwhelmed by anxiety, worry, stress, and fear? Are you looking for proven holistic solutions to help you move past the suffering? We understand, and we want you to know you are not alone. Tree's Yoga for Anxiety online course was created for these wild times we find ourselves in. It will give you the support and tools you need for managing everyday stress, anxiety, and overwhelm in a safe and supportive way. Led by experienced therapists and yoga educators, Carolyn Burke and Tamika Shilby, this highly rated course includes stress relieving techniques, breath work, gentle yoga, mindfulness practices, meditations, and includes the revolutionary healing tools and foods for anxiety outlined by Anthony William, medical medium. Visit davidtree.com, DEVATREE.com, to learn more and start your healing journey toward well being today. Anxiety affects millions, but relief is possible.
That's a hard one
Mm-hmm.
because everybody is different and everybody takes information differently. And to find something that doesn't sound like a criticism or that you're critiquing their life or that, okay, I don't drink now, so I'm better than you, so you should do what I'm doing. It's like a super slippery, really fine line about, what can be said, if anything should be said at all. And for me personally, I've had to say, like I've said a few times, is this what you want to do every day? Does this feel like it resonates for you and that you want to, carry on with this? And the person has said, I'm fine. And I said, okay, but just, I'm here if you ever need to talk. Another thing that really helped for me too is I have done some work with codependency. So knowing that, like, that kind of helped me get brave and make my own boundaries. And sometimes I just have to be, no, this isn't going to work for me.
Right.
No, I don't want this in my home. I'm sorry. You're more than welcome to come in, but this isn't welcome in my home. And then just leave it at that.
Mm-hmm.
It was so hard not to say more.
Yeah. Sorry, you go ahead.
The last thing I was going to say is sometimes it's just better not to say anything at all because everybody's journey is their own journey. If somebody had said to me, Christa, your drinking is becoming a problem, and I would be like, I'm the problem? No, you're the problem. Like I would never have listened ever.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Just because there's like almost like that defiance, right? Piece to it. Yeah.
You get defensive, like, what do you mean I'm doing something wrong and how dare you say something? So yeah, you have to be pretty careful, I would say.
Right. I think that that's so interesting. And I just had a flashback to our meditation in the modern age training. And Tanika had said something about stepping in to someone else's journey. And who are we to say that this is not a part of their healing path, a part of their journey, and us trying to change that for them? And what does that,
Mm-hmm.
and then it's like the shift back onto what is that for us? Why do we feel like we
Exactly.
need to be jumping in?
Yes.
And yeah, it's completely
Yeah.
aligns with what you were talking about, this codependency piece. So
Well, then it also
interesting.
kind of, well, and it, yeah, I agree. And it also goes back to the part before when I had said about judgment and compassion.
Mm-hmm.
So is me saying something about somebody else's addiction to them, is that judgy? Is that me showing compassion? Like, can I just show compassion by showing up for them and showing support and being more loving and not saying anything at all? Because also there's also a purpose or a function there for it. I can also say to somebody who is disrupting my life in a negative way, I can also say, this really isn't working for me anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're ready to listen or to talk, I'm here. So it's bringing in that compassion and empathy and the non-judgment.
So interesting. I was just listening to a Tim Ferriss Q&A. He was going on about how actually bringing up somebody's tendencies and addiction could be very harmful, especially if we don't have any other steps or things, ready to help catch them. Because for somebody to say to you that I think that you have an issue, or I think that you should look into this, could bring up some emotions and things that
Right.
they're not ready to deal with yet. I think that
No.
sometimes it could honestly do a little bit more harm
Yeah.
bringing it up.
I agree. I agree. It can bring up a lot more issues. And like you said, if you don't have anything to back it up for them, to help them, like to catch them. And sometimes it's just showing up.
Right.
Like, I'm here.
Yeah.
I'm here for you. Whenever you need. If you need to talk about anything, I'm here.
But gosh, it's so hard when you're witnessing somebody that you love going through something like addictions to drugs or alcohol, and you're just having to
It's
step
so hard.
back, especially when you're
It is so
seeing
hard.
how it's like directly impacting other areas of their life, like work and family, etc. Right? It's so hard. But there
It's
is
so hard.
this innate belief that every person is good. I don't think that we all choose to be addicted or go down that path.
No,
We don't choose
no,
to
I
do
don't.
that. I think it's
No, I don't.
sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, nobody wakes up in the morning and says, today I want to be an addict.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody ever said that.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
exactly.
agree.
It's all just like all of the different things that they've had to navigate through their lives. And so, can you talk more about spirituality? I'm just so intrigued about how it just dawned on you in the shower that you didn't want to lead this life with alcohol anymore, and how yoga has really played a role in this sobriety journey for you.
Just like, yay, yoga. Like,
Yeah.
yay,
Yeah.
yoga. Yay. I think like the biggest thing, like, so right away, it wasn't a huge spiritual journey for me because it took a while to get there. Like, it really did. But I guess for me, it was, I needed to just really start to take care of myself. Like, I realized there was no way I was taking care of myself properly. I ate well, but I there was room for improvement, so I really started to eat well. I started to do more exercise. And then just one day, I don't even know how, there was just this meditation popped up on my laptop. Like, I never barely ever even went on. It wasn't a laptop, it was an iPad at the time. I very rarely ever went on, and I don't know what I was doing. And you know how you do like a YouTube search for something?
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden, over on the side, there was all these like different things. And I was like, what is this? And so I like kind of clicked on it, and it was a meditation. And I was like, I really like this. Like, it really calmed my nervous system. It made me feel really good. And it all of a sudden, I was like, this reminds me of the music that they would play when I would go to yoga. And I have to say, yay yoga now, but I used to actually like hate yoga, but I would go. I don't know what it was, but there was just this huge aversion to it. When I would go, I would be like, why do I feel so awful when I'm here? But then why do I like keep coming back to it? Like, I don't know. It was just this weird, really weird thing that happened for about 10 years. And then all of a sudden that music came on, and then there wasn't a lot of yoga in my town at that time, but then something started up. And then there was just like this whole like little ripple effect that just kind of started to happen. And then a couple of big things happened in my life that changed my situation. And then all of a sudden I was kind of on my own. And one day I just decided that whatever was happening in my life wasn't working again. I think I had like a whole bunch of different like mini breaks. I don't know, like breakdowns, breakthroughs, whatever you call them. And in this moment, whatever was happening in my life was not fulfilling. And I always worked Saturdays. I took Saturday off, and I went to a yoga class, and I said to the girl, I've been looking to do a yoga training. And she said, you should take one with David Tree. This is who I took my yoga training with. And I went, really? And she said, yeah. She goes, they're doing one in Jamaica. And I went, oh my goodness. I literally went home, and by Sunday, I had joined up with people I didn't even know. I had no idea who these people were. I just took the word from one person that they were great, and I went with it. And it changed my life. I never realized how much I needed to be in that kind of group. And I didn't realize how small my voice was. I didn't realize how small I was until I started doing, and I didn't even at that time really still like yoga. I'm going to go do a yoga teacher training because that voice inside my head got really loud again. And it said, no, you need to do this. And I did it. And it just changed my life. Like, it changed everything. to be surrounded by people who are so loving and caring and connected, and the movement and just the way people spoke to each other, I was like, this is incredible. Everybody deserves to be talked to and treated like this, including myself. And it was just this wonderful, beautiful journey that just allowed me to, and I say beautiful in the fact that there was a lot of crying.
Mm-hmm.
There was a lot of crying and a lot of tears and a lot of unshedding and a lot of layers that were peeled back. And, you know, the yoga made me feel stronger to be able to support myself going through all of those emotions, because there was so many. Oh my gosh, like years of crying. I didn't know you could cry this much.
I'm chuckling at the fact that I had a very similar experience, because I think I've mentioned this before too on one of the podcast episodes, is that, like, you know, I went to yoga because I wanted to learn how to do all the postures, and there wasn't much more of this like emotional side that I thought. And so I remember just like pushing it down for so long. And then at one of the training weekends, it just like released. And talk about like uncontrollable weeping and the things that were just coming through, right? It's such a great container. Well, the training, of course, but also just any sort of yoga class to get on your mat and have that container for yourself to check in and notice what you're feeling, and maybe not even know why it's bubbling up, but just taking notice.
I love that.
I love that piece about it. And so do you have any sort of, or can you recall any sort of aha moments that you specifically had on your mat that have stuck with you and you were like, this is profound?
Just one?
I know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, so many. But the biggest one for me was, I've always been kind of emotional. And I don't mean that as a bad thing, but I didn't know that emotion was this good until I started to do yoga. I didn't know that it was okay to just be emotional and to feel our emotions and to experience them. So one time at the church, in the chapel, going into that room in the morning. So I hadn't experienced this yet because I had done my full 200 hours somewhere else. So coming into my first chapel experience, and this was the subtle energy body. So there was a lot of people there. I don't know if there was even enough space for us to be in that room. And there was all these beautiful souls in there, and the room is quiet and it's dark. The person is sitting up at the front. It was probably Gabby, ready to teach. And there was all of these beautiful bodies, and the music's playing, and it's so quiet. And I remember lying down on my mat. I get teary thinking about it right now. And the tears just streaming out of my eyes, just streaming down. I'm sure there was a puddle on my mat. And I never in my life felt so held and supported. And nobody was doing anything but just being there. Just being there in that room with all of these beautiful souls, and the energy that I felt in that moment. And in that moment, I knew that that is what love felt like. And I went, that's it. Everything that I've ever gone through to this moment has led me to here, because I am supposed to know what love feels like so that I can let others know what love feels like too. It wasn't just that one moment. It probably happened about 10, 20 different times, because who knows what magical spirit energy is just flowing around that room. But
totally.
It was just unbelievable, because I've known, but this is the different love that we feel for ourselves. And I was like, this is what love really, really feels like.
Wow. Amazing.
Wipe the tears away.
Yeah. I'm thinking to that feeling, and I think it's like this space that allows you to show up as yourself, and then know that you are loved. And then in return, there's this mirror effect where then you're then able to fully embrace and love who you are. And wow.
And
sorry. Yep. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, and I think that is like a super important thing to say right there, is that when it comes to yoga, it doesn't matter what you do on the mat, you just show up.
Mm-hmm.
And like I always say at the beginning of my class, if you just come to class and lay on your mat and do nothing else but just be here in the energy of everyone else practicing, you are doing so much for yourself.
Oh
And
my
I just,
goodness.
yeah, just show up and be you. Right. Well,
So,
that's been taught to us, right? That
of
was like,
course, but
just show up. Yeah.
also, I think too, Krista, is that, it's such a good point to make that there is no such thing as like a bad yoga class, a bad
No.
meditation. I've heard of folks going on saying like, oh, I'm horrible at yoga, I'm horrible at meditating. And I just think that if we can recognize that there is no such thing as a bad
No.
meditation session and that it is just the part of showing up, it kind of,
Yes.
again, ripples into other areas
Yeah.
of your life where you can be okay and accept the flaws and embrace maybe the messy bits and the not so nice
Yes.
pieces, and then still feel love for yourself and still show up for yourself.
Yeah.
So
And
interesting.
I wish I could remember who said this, but I'm sure I've heard Carolyn say it
Mm-hmm.
before, is that if you can breathe, you can do yoga. Like, that's it. Like, if you can breathe, you're doing it, right?
Right.
Like, you don't have to do, anything spectacular, but just show up and just be your perfectly imperfect self.
Mm.
It's just, yeah, just, I
Totally.
love it.
So, how would you say that the learnings and the teachings that you've had through yoga and meditation, how, again, have they rippled into the other areas of your life? Like, can you give a recent example of things that maybe you're going through or that you've gone through, and how you're trusting yourself, knowing all of the lessons and teachings that you've had throughout the years to then guide yourself
Yeah.
into the decisions that you're making and whatnot?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that yoga has taught me is that whole thing. Like, you don't have to be perfect,
Mm.
because just show up as you are. And regardless of how you show up, there's going to be somebody that resonates with you. Um, I still sometimes get in my head about like, oh, am I a good enough yoga teacher? Like, am I? And then I'm like, hey, who are you? Why are you saying that? Stop that. Everybody needs yoga, and your yoga that you teach is great. It's just, it's great. And allow the people that are going to show up, show up. And it's been a couple years since I taught, because I had some physical things that wouldn't allow me to. It was devastating. And I didn't realize how much I missed it, but sometimes you just have to pause to heal.
Mm.
Like, I literally couldn't even do yoga if I wanted to. And I remember going to teach the class, and I was asked, and I was nervous. I was like, why are you nervous? You've taught so many times before. But I had taught before, but then I hadn't paused for a long time and then started again. And I showed up to the class, and literally there was 8 people there, and they had never done yoga before. None of them had done yoga before, and they were all so scared to do yoga, because the yoga in their mind that they had envisioned was the bendy, twisty, pretzel-y stuff, which, if you can do that, that's great. And that was one of the first questions I had. And I was like, oh, no. I said, I can't do that. I go, but if you want to, you can. I go, but I can't do that kind of yoga. I'm, just going to teach you a nice mental yoga, and you move at your own pace. And I'm tight. I'm not even really flexible at all. I'm pretty tight. I'm like, we just show up. And at the end of the class, I had, so many compliments on how soft, gentle, and that they weren't sure if they were going to like yoga, and they loved it. And they're like, when are you coming back? And it was in that moment again where I had to go, see, you just have to show up. And when you show up, your people are going to show up. And that's what the yoga training and everything has taught me, is just show up as you are. And, there's going to be somebody that shows up to the class that isn't maybe going to align with what I teach. And that's okay.
I think
It's
too.
taught me it's okay. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that it's so important too that you had mentioned this, like, it's like a newfound almost trust in yourself through your journey, and just knowing that you're in the place that you're supposed to be with the people that you're supposed to be. And again, just like this innate trust and listening to yourself. Like, even when I was thinking about you mentioning, like, I said to myself, like, oh my gosh, are people going to like me? Like, this whole yoga. And then you're saying to yourself, like, hey, what's going on here? Why are you saying these things to
Why are
yourself?
you
Or,
saying that?
yeah.
That's also the thing too. And I think this is worth noting. It popped into my head, is that addiction can be many different things. And for me, mine is destructive patterns of, putting myself down. And it can be pretty addictive if you allow yourself to go down that path. And so I have to catch myself in those moments and redirect the process. And so it's like, no, we're not going to get back into that pattern and, allow ourselves to be pushed down by our own voice.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, let's not do that. And so that I find that I can get into kind of a repetitive pattern on that, and it can be quite addictive. And so it's, noticing those patterns and for me, redirecting them to something else, right? Having something that I can go to right away. That's like, no, this is not where we're going.
Have you heard of people like naming it, or like, almost like that kind of voice, like, I don't know, calling it Susan or something. I you know what I mean? Like, hey, Susan, or like,
Oh, that's a cute one.
yeah, it's
Okay,
like,
I'm going to come up with a name.
yeah,
I like it.
just to like kind of, really call out and ways. I just
I
think it's
love it.
pretty funny. But yeah. Well,
And then imagine somebody hearing you
oh yeah.
talking to
Yeah,
yourself about
if
it.
you're actually being vocal, like you're not just saying it in your head. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Oh, that's, yeah, so interesting. What's your thoughts around people that maybe have gone too far? Do you ever feel like there's a point in with addictions or alcoholism or addiction to drugs where like they've gone too far, or it feels like it could be pretty heavy, so destructive that it's hard to repair? Do you know what I mean?
Do you mean like to the point where like there's the point of no return?
Yeah.
Do I feel like that's possible?
Do you think that that's possible? Oh, that's such a good way to put it. Is there a point of no return? Yeah. When it comes to addictions to drugs and alcohol.
Well, I mean, I'm sure there's many people who cry every day over lost loved ones that, it definitely has gone too far. But as someone who is in active addiction, there's always somewhere they can go to. There's always someone they can reach out to. And but it's again, that whole, like, I need to love myself to understand, that I'm worthy of all of that. I'm worthy of the love. I'm worthy of help. I'm worthy of feeling whole and complete. And, I'm worthy to live a life that does not feel weighted down by addiction, whatever the addiction is. Do I feel there's hope? Yeah, I really do. I really do. And I think as a person in recovery, it's like, can we just have love and compassion and not judgment for those that are going through it? And, if we could have a less judgmental and more compassionate world, would we have less addiction, more understanding, more acceptance, more openness, and less judgment as to, towards somebody who is in addiction?
Mm-hmm.
I kind of feel like if we can have that, then absolutely. My hope and my dream would be that everybody would find something that connects with them so that they don't have to be in that anymore.
I had a couple of reflection questions here for you.
Mm-hmm.
If you could go back and sit with yourself on one of the hardest days that you've had, what would you say to her now?
Oh, I get so teary. I would just say, I love you. I love you. I love you. I love you. And I'm here for you. Like, no matter what you need, I'm here. And if you need to stay here right now in this moment with this addiction, with that alcohol, I'm here. I'm going to sit with you.
Just making space, holding
Making
space.
And yeah, I'll be with you for as long as you need. Yeah.
Beautiful. And knowing that you're sober now, what would you say that your sobriety gives you access to now that you could have never had when you were moving through your addiction?
Emotion, right? Like, a big part for me was hiding. Being sober allows me to be more open. It allows me to be more vulnerable. It definitely allows me to be more accepting of myself and of others. I understand that addiction isn't fun. Therefore, I understand that whatever you're going through has a purpose. And I understand if you need time. And I think it gave me the ability to love myself. What a gift.
Wow. So this kind of brings up the piece of recovering out loud, which I know you spoke about before, but it's like this naming it, owning it, walking forward with it. And I think it's just such a beautiful thing, Christa, because I totally believe that with story sharing, it's again this connection piece where people can understand that they're not alone and that there are other people like them out there. And so, what do you think recovering out loud has helped you with? You've talked about this vulnerability being in a small town and not necessarily wanting to come forward with it, but do you think that it has had major positive effects just talking about it And being public with it.
Yeah. And the biggest thing is that there's no need to have shame.
Mm.
There is absolutely, for me, like shame was a big thing, right? But there's absolutely no need for shame. And I feel like the more we talk about it, the more that we're out there, and the more people who just say, hey, I'm in recovery. You don't have to, obviously, because there's anonymity. You're allowed to be anonymous if you choose to be. But, the more people who speak up and the more people who speak out, the more people know and understand that, hey, if they can say something about it, then I can too. Right? I don't need to sit here and hide. You can hide if you want to. But what I'm saying is that if you feel an inkling to get out there and to open and to say something, there's no need to have shame. There really, really isn't. Because what is that saying? Shame dies when people speak. I'm sure that's not exactly how it said. So
the essence of, yeah.
My own version. But, let's just speak up, and it removes barriers, and it removes walls, it removes that shame. And, it took me a long time to get to that point. And so I want others to know that you don't need to take time to do that, because I mean, it does take time. But I'm just saying, you've got a friend, right? Like, I'll be your friend to let you know that you don't need to have shame.
That's so beautiful. And to wrap up, I'm just thinking, what's one thing? I know we're way past an hour. Well, not way past. We're past an hour.
Oh, wow.
I know.
Okay, good.
It's great. What's one thing that you would hope that people take away from your story, the Christa story?
Sometimes it's difficult to start, but just start loving yourself any little way possible that you can. One little teeny tiny little thing that says, I love you. Start today and build. Love yourself, because you're perfect the way you are.
I love that. Christa, thank you so much for all your wisdom and everything. It's been fabulous to hear about your journey. And I know that there's going to be so many people that glean some information and helpful bits from our conversation today. So thank you so much. I appreciate you.
Thank you. Thank you, Candace, for doing this and having a space where people can share. I love it.
Yay, you made it to the end of the Love Who You Are podcast. If you liked this episode, please subscribe and leave a review, or text a friend and share the love. These small actions make a big difference in this realm, and we thank you. And we have a present for you, a guide to creating and sustaining a home practice. In this free video, 7 experienced wellness leaders share what it takes to overcome the struggle of creating a home practice in anything: yoga, meditation, journaling, or whatever you'd love to do more of. You don't want to miss the wisdom of these incredible women. You'll find your free gift at devatree.com. That's DEVATREE.com. We'll see you next time, and know that you are loved.